On April 30th, 1945, deep in the confines of his bunker beneath the shattered streets of Berlin, Adolf Hitler, one of history's most infamous figures, is said to have taken his own life as the Allies closed in. But did he really? For decades, rumors and conspiracy theories have swirled around this pivotal moment in history, suggesting that the Nazi leader might have escaped and lived out his days in hiding. What if the story we've been told is not the whole truth? By April 1945, the Allies were closing in on Berlin from all sides. The city was a battleground, with Soviet troops advancing from the east and Allied forces approaching from the west. Inside his bunker, Hitler was isolated, surrounded by his closest advisors and loyal followers. Hitler's health and mental state had deteriorated significantly. Reports indicate he was suffering from Parkinson's disease, which affected his motor skills and left him increasingly paranoid and delusional. As the situation in Berlin grew more desperate, Hitler's inner circle began to plan their own escapes or suicides. On April 30th, 1945, as the Soviets were just blocks away from the Führerbunker, Hitler reportedly committed suicide along with his wife, Eva Braun. The official story is that he took a cyanide capsule and shot himself in the head. Their bodies were then carried outside, doused in petrol, and set ablaze to prevent them from being captured and displayed by the Soviets. Almost immediately, however, conspiracy theories began. The Soviets initially claimed that they were unable to confirm Hitler's death and later spread rumors that he was alive. According to subsequent reports, however, the Soviets recovered his burnt remains, which were identified through dental records. Hitler's body was secretly buried before being exhumed and cremated, with the ashes scattered into the Biederitz River in 1970 by a KGB team. Today on Binge History, we will be exploring the question whether Hitler died after World War II. Make sure to subscribe to our channel for more content just like this one, and click the bell icon to get notified about new videos from Binge History. The primary sources of information about Hitler's death come from the testimonies of those who were in the bunker with him. These accounts were collected by both Soviet and Western investigators in the aftermath of the war. According to these witnesses, including Hitler's personal staff and high-ranking Nazi officials, there is a consistent narrative of the events leading up to and immediately following Hitler's death. One of the key pieces of physical evidence comes from the remains found in the bunker. The Soviets claim to have recovered fragments of Hitler's skull, which was later kept in Moscow. Additionally, dental records provided by Hitler's dentist were used to identify his charred remains. These records matched the dental work found on the jawbone believed to be Hitler's, providing further confirmation. In the chaotic final days of the war, the Soviets were the first to reach Hitler's bunker. They conducted a thorough investigation, taking testimonies from captured Nazis and examining the site. The Soviet report confirmed that Hitler and Braun had committed suicide and their bodies had been burned. However, due to the Cold War tensions, the Soviets initially kept much of this information secret, fueling speculation and conspiracy theories. Despite the seemingly conclusive evidence, conspiracy theories about Hitler's escape began to emerge almost immediately after the war. These theories gained traction due to several factors: the chaotic nature of the war's end, the lack of photographic evidence of Hitler's body, and the initial secrecy surrounding Soviet investigations. Also, it was in November 1945, the British legation in Copenhagen informed the Foreign Office that a Danish lady had reported her friend's dream that Adolf Hitler was alive, disguised as a monk, and had shaved off his mustache. Civil servants in London, understandably, scoffed at the report, noting that there will be no end to stories of this kind, just like we consider it right now. According to British academic Luke Daly-Groves in his new book, Hitler's Death, which aims to debunk conspiracy theories surrounding the Führer's death, his words have proven somewhat prophetic. In the weeks and months following the war, Hitler's sightings from around the world were reported to British and American intelligence services. It was claimed that Hitler had been seen dressed as a woman in Ireland, in Egypt where he had converted to Islam, in a coffee shop in Amsterdam, on a train traveling from New Orleans, in a restaurant in Washington, D.C., and in Charlottesville, Virginia. One of the most popular theories suggests that Hitler was living with his old comrades in Argentina, having been spirited out of Berlin, flown to a German airbase in Denmark, and then taken across the Atlantic by U-boat. According to one FBI file, Hitler arrived at his Argentinian ranch hideaway on horseback. This idea was fueled by reports of Nazi sympathizers in South America and sightings of individuals resembling Hitler. Proponents of this theory point to the presence of a significant number of former Nazis in South America, such as Adolf Eichmann and Josef Mengele, who successfully evaded capture for many years. They argue that if these high-ranking Nazis could escape, it is plausible that Hitler could have done the same. In fact, if Hitler was seen in all of these alleged locations, he could undoubtedly have written one of the most comprehensive travel guides of the 20th century at this point. But of course, all evidence suggests that such rumors were false. Regardless of how absurd, these rumors continue to feed a lucrative industry of Hitler conspiracy theories decades after he shot himself in Berlin, bringing the darkest chapter in human history to a close. Books like Grey Wolf, The Escape of Adolf Hitler by Simon Dunstan and Gerard Williams argue that the Führer fled Berlin and established a new life in Argentina with the help of loyal Nazis. These books had received extensive newspaper coverage, as well as television shows such as the History Channel's multi-part series, Hunting Hitler. However, this latest round of conspiracy theories was contradicted by the 2009 revelation that DNA tests showed a piece of skull in Moscow, once thought to be Hitler's, actually belonged to a woman. Let's consider the possibility that Hitler survived the war. How does this relate to the Soviets spreading misinformation? The seeds for the ongoing rumors about Hitler's fate were planted by Soviet actions immediately following Nazi Germany's defeat. Initially, Soviet officers under Marshal Zhukov, who led the Russian forces in the Battle of Berlin, informed Western newspapers that Hitler's body had been discovered. However, Stalin quickly contradicted them. Less than a month after the war ended, the Soviet leader told Harry Hopkins, a close advisor to former President Franklin D. Roosevelt, that Hitler was still alive. Within days, Zhukov changed his statement, claiming that Hitler's body had not been found and that he might have escaped. These Soviet claims quickly spread through Berlin and were reported in Allied newspapers. In July 1945, British newspapers quoted a Russian officer saying that a charred body discovered by the Soviets was actually a poor double of Hitler. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, U.S. newspapers quoted the Russian garrison commandant of Berlin, who claimed that Hitler had gone into hiding somewhere in Europe with Spanish dictator General Francisco Franco, suspected of possibly sheltering him. The Soviet campaign was so well coordinated and officially supported that in September 1945, all Russian newspapers carried an item claiming that British intelligence officers were hunting for Hitler in Hamburg, with the Führer's appearance allegedly altered by plastic surgery. Pravda, the Communist Party mouthpiece, also published comments by Berlin's deputy mayor, who was convinced Hitler was still alive. The Soviets' claims were so persistent that, 1 month later, Supreme Allied Commander Dwight Eisenhower suggested that Hitler might still be alive. Despite the fact that the future president quickly retracted his statement, it was widely circulated. In fact, most historians believe these Soviet actions contributed to the persistence of conspiracy theories. One reason these stories remain popular is their origin with the Soviet government, including important officials like Stalin, who participated in the defeat of Nazi Germany and suggested Hitler could have escaped. Historians have speculated extensively on Stalin's motivations. Some believe that the Soviet leader wanted to discredit popular potential domestic rivals like Zhukov. Attempting to blame Spain and Argentina for harboring Hitler aided Stalin's fascist adversaries on the international stage. He may also have wished to keep the idea of a continuing threat from Hitler alive as part of a power play in territorial disputes as the Allies moved into their zones of occupation in Germany. However, Historians and forensic experts have largely debunked the theories of Hitler's escape. The most compelling evidence remains the dental records and the testimonies of those who were in the bunker. Pieces of evidence from Hitler's death site, especially his false teeth, show a bluish color, which is a result of the chemical reaction between cyanide and the metal used in his dentures. The team also examined a skull fragment said to be from the German dictator, which revealed a hole on the left side, most likely caused by a bullet. The study's director, Professor Philippe Charlier, said the teeth were unmistakably Hitler's and proved he died at the end of World War II. These points still point out that he died on the very spot itself, and these theories are just rubbish. So what do you think? Leave your comment below and don't forget to like, subscribe, and click that bell button to get notified from Binge History.